Hello, my name is Caleb Levinson. This is for Law 2150 at Appalachian State University. My topic will be online piracy and the current laws and legislations that are trying to combat it. Let's look at the definition of piracy. The second part of dictionary.com's definition is what we want, which is the unauthorized reproduction or use of a copyrighted book, recording, television program, patented invention, trademark product, etc. So basically something someone has a right over. And ironically enough, the example they use is the record industry is beset with piracy. The most common method of online piracy is streaming content, so most of us are familiar with this because most of us have partaken in this, and that's just watching something online, a movie that we didn't necessarily want to rent from Redbox, or maybe we don't have a Netflix account or something like that. So you can just go to a hosting site, watch it one time, and once you close out of your internet browser, you don't have access to it again. But the second most common method of piracy is downloading illegal copies of content, so either downloading music or movies to have unlimited access to without internet. And the worst method of piracy, and I say worst in terms of the punishment from the FBI under the MCA guidelines, things like that. That worst method is sharing illegal content with others via P2P networks or peer-to-peer networks. So this is what the government really wants to crack down on, is they want to find these people who are actually distributing these illegal goods and stop them. So the people, they consider people watching online content kind of occasional offenders. They're not really that concerned about it. While they do contribute to the problem, what they really want to crack down on, again, is those people that are in charge of distributing it. So current and past legislation dealing with copyright acts dates back to 1970 when the United States joined WIPO, which is the World Intellectual Property Organization. And in 1998, we passed the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which lays a lot of the groundwork for the legislation dealing with copyright that we have today. COICO was the first stab at piracy, which didn't pass for a lot of reasons, but the two bills I want to focus on are PIPA and SOPA, which were both suggested in 2011. Neither of them passed, but I want to go in depth on to why that is. So PIPA and SOPA are basically House and Senate versions of the same bill. They both have the same underlying intention, which is to decrease piracy by legalizing more direct government influence on internet operations. And I say decrease because ending piracy, most everyone has agreed, is altogether is unrealistic, but they definitely want to achieve a manageable level. Powers granted, it authorizes the United States Department of Justice to get a court order against websites dedicated to infringing activities, and they consider infringement to be the distribution of illegal copies, counterfeit goods, or anti-digital rights management technology, and they consider it to exist if facts or circumstances suggest that the site is used primarily as a means for engaging in, enabling, or facilitating activities described. Private IP rights holders can receive injunctions against domain names to have financial transaction providers like PayPal and advertisers stop doing business with that domain name. This court order can be served on internet service providers like AT&T or Charter Internet, advertising services, financial transaction providers, and information location tools like search engines like Google. The implications of all this, it gives power to the government. It's based on ambiguous language, so engaging in, enabling, or facilitating activities is a little too broad, and those in opposition basically say it's too broad to where it would exclude a lot of people who are not by any means dedicated to infringing activities. And an example is YouTube had to take down a video of a child singing a Prince song in the background before bedtime, and this whole 2-year-long lawsuit followed, but it just kind of gets a little ridiculous in the sense that people can't share information that's not infringing or not intended to be piracy like that. So support copyright and trademark owners, obviously in support, so like Viacom, the Motion Pictures Association of America, etc. And then the opposition comes from more of the technical side, which I think is good. From Mozilla, Facebook, Yahoo, eBay, American Express, Wikipedia, Google, and Wikipedia actually did a 24-hour blackout in protest of PIPA and SOPA. So there's lots of controversy regarding SOPA and PIPA, and that's why mainly that didn't pass. So if we look at the Constitution, due process was said to be violated, to where remedies are given by courts after only an ex parte proceeding, where only one side needs to present evidence without even needing the defendant to be aware of the action. So a lot of people argue that that's not due process. They need a fair trial, and they definitely need to be aware of the action that's being served against them. Free speech, so violation of the First Amendment, and this was decided in Friedman versus Maryland, a case a very long time ago, in the 1960s, I believe, and it basically said that for the government to suppress speech prior to an adversarial hearing is unconstitutional. So the court has to make a final determination whether the content is unlawful before it can be completely removed from circulation. So back in the day, that most likely was referring to newspapers and things like that, but with our modern technology, a lot of our news and just information is spread online, but still the same thing applies to where the court needs to make a final determination whether content is unlawful before action is taken against it. And as far as a jurisdiction problem, in rem against the actual domain, so in rem against the thing, and this is the actual domain, not even the person that runs the domain, because they would be outside of U.S. jurisdiction. So there's a lot of controversy to whether the jurisdiction is actually valid. So even without the question of constitutionality, we still run into a lot of technical issues, one of them being DNS, which is domain name system. It undermines the principle of domain name universality, complicates security efforts, and promotes circumvention. And circumvention would take the form of people could just plug in internet browsers or internet plugins for those browsers that would just circumvent the security measures that are trying to be put in place, which would just push more people further underground and away from government scrutiny. And virtual walls, just something Hillary Clinton was saying, is that other countries have thrown up these walls that take down nonviolent political protesting and limit free speech, and she just said we shouldn't be a country that are throwing up these walls. We should all be connected worldwide through the internet. And innovation says these bills would undermine that leadership and dramatically diminish the internet's capability as a communications medium. So again, just kind of diminishing that power of the internet by putting all these regulations on it. So the economic effects of piracy, again, like I was saying, there are just some funky digits behind all that in the studies that people are referencing in their lobbying for SOPA and PIPA. It's 750,000, so that's the number of jobs apparently lost due to piracy, and that was based off a 1986 speech, and where that speech said anywhere from 130,000 to 750,000 jobs, and over time it's just been rounded up to that big number. Economic loss, 250 billion. This value is part of a 1991 Forbes article estimating the total value of pirated goods if they had been sold instead of stolen. And incentives were, this one's fairly accurate, just future development without financial incentives gained through profits. Artists and developers have less reason to keep innovating and creating, and that makes sense. But these numbers are a little bit bogus. The Government Accountability Office says, quote, it's difficult, if not impossible, to quantify the net effect of counterfeiting and piracy on the economy as a whole. And these figures, referring to the two I just mentioned, cannot be substantiated or traced back to an underlying data source or methodology. A few points in conclusion. Due process. SOPA and PIPA violate constitutional due process and free speech rights by giving power to take action without proper hearing and abuse power of jurisdiction. As far as the economy, while there's certainly an adverse effect on the multimedia industry, the quantifiable statistics, like I just mentioned, have yet to be reliably sourced. The technological implications, the internet contributes vastly to our future development through communication, and by ambiguously limiting this communication, innocent parties are put at risk and a fundamental system of the internet is altered. And these are my citations for all the studies and the quotes, and plenty of sites on there where you can research PIPA and SOPA and kind of get a word-for-word analysis on your own. But thanks for listening, and I enjoyed it.